world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
Do you want to get that high pony looking slick and clean every time? Well, whether it's competition hair, getting that super clean look for your choreography, or even just that cute, trendy low bun for going out with friends, Slick Hair Company is your answer. Slick Hair Company is the founder of the original Slick Stick, and they also provide high-quality hair care, hair accessories, and styling products that will help you to achieve the perfect style and look. I used their wax stick for that middle part low bun look, and it was awesome. I was even able to curl my hair the next day without washing it, and my hair wasn't all greasy and gross. Founded by a female entrepreneur, Slick Hair uses cruelty-free ingredients that smooth all hair types. They hydrate and strengthen your hair. They promote hair growth and leave your hair feeling fresh and not greasy or sticky. Visit slickhaircompany.com/thecheermomblog and use code thecheermomblog for 10% off your entire order. That's slickhaircompany.com/thecheermomblog and use code thecheermomblog for 10% off. Your perfect style awaits with Slick Hair Company. This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is supported by the Cheer Collection, inspirational jewelry styles for every cheer enthusiast. As cheer moms, athletes, and those who love cheer moms and their athletes, we're all looking for a way to show our support. Sometimes that's a big fat head with your athlete's face or a big blingy jersey, but those things don't always translate into our day-to-day lives. The Cheer Collection provides quality, classic jewelry pieces expertly engraved with subtle quotes like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, hit 0, and 1, 3, 5, 7. A necklace, bracelet, or ring from the Cheer Collection can be worn at school, work, or anywhere you need or want a touch of class and a little encouragement or reminder of the sport or the athlete that you love so much. And for those who have been asking, brand ambassador applications are now open. Big things are coming to the ambassador community, including opportunity for leadership development, to have input on new pieces of jewelry, and of course, to build community and make new friends. Visit thecheercollection.com. That's thecheercollection.com for details. And just for listeners of this podcast, if you enter code POD15, that's POD 15, you'll get 15% off of your purchase. Well, today's very special because not only is it part 2 of my conversation with the one and only Justin Carrier, Vice President of Varsity All-Star, today is the 100th episode of the podcast. Like, I really can't even believe that I've made it this far. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to you. If you haven't checked it out already, I am running a giveaway and promotion in celebration of the 100th episode of the podcast. So hop over to my Instagram at the Cheer Mom blog and you can see what's going on there. But happy 100, everyone. Thank you so much for your encouragement, for your ideas, for your questions, for your motivation, and for listening on a regular basis and sharing it with your friends and talking about it in the Facebook groups. Like, it's so cool. I was scrolling through Facebook just last week and there was a question that sometimes I try to pop in there. If there's a question that shows up in my feed, I won't read the comments because who's got time for that? Unless you're looking for tea or you actually want the answer. But I didn't read the comments right away and I just popped in the comment, hey, there's an episode of the Cheer Mom podcast addressing this very question. And so I put that in there and then I was like, you know what? I wonder what other people are saying about this topic. So I clicked into the comments and a bunch of you had already linked the specific episode, said, hey, there was a great interview about this. There was a great podcast episode about this. Here's the link. Like, what? And you guys aren't even like my mom or my best friend. Like, I didn't even know these people. You know, I have my squad of people who will share things just because they know me or they've been OG fans, but these were people that like, I'm just floored. People that I don't even know are sharing the podcast. And I know I ask you guys to do that on a regular basis, and I hope that you do, but to see it happening in real time, it made my heart feel warm. It made me feel so good. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart. You are what keeps this show going. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is part 2 of my conversation with Justin Carrier. I didn't know that it was possible to love and admire him more, but it happened. And then I listened to the podcast back again. I listened to our interview again, and I was like, man, this is a great guy. Today, we get into the nitty-gritty of some things. He talks about the scoring system and the score sheet, and I ask him about fair judging and some of those hard-hitting questions that you guys want to know about. I also ask about, like, why is Summit such a big deal? And this is a more popular opinion now, but several years ago, it was a hot take and not a popular opinion to say, like, why are we worried about getting a Summit bid? Like, that's great, but why do we care? And speaking of Facebook groups, I do see a lot of people saying it's all about Summit and Varsity made it all about Summit. And Justin kind of set the record straight on that and then talks about the steps that Varsity has taken to encourage athletes to enjoy their whole season and enjoy the journey. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Hopefully you guys will be more in the know about it and be paying attention to it for your upcoming season if you're competing at varsity events. So happy 100, everyone. And here's part 2 of my interview with Justin Carrier. So can you share with me maybe one thing that you're doing at an event in a competition that the kids are taking or that you hope they'll take with them beyond the 2 minutes and 30 seconds they're on your competition mat?
Well, what we introduced this past year was Pass the Mat, and it's a chance for programs. They at their first event of the year, Varsity staff awarded a team it's a little section of a floor, like a little swatch of a competition floor for great sportsmanship or great behavior or dealing with adversity on site at the event, something not cheer related. And then throughout the season, those teams have been finding other teams at competitions and then awarding those teams the same mat. So they've been passing the mat all season long. It's actually something that we started, I think, the year that COVID happened, and we brought it back this year. And that has been really, really cool. Everybody, especially in All-Star compared to school, everybody is so hyper-focused on competition that if we don't stop them and force them to experience the other aspects of leadership that we want them to learn from, it probably wouldn't get done. And so that's been really cool this year is adding to this experience. I had one coach who told me they won their division and they got the pass the mat. And that coach called me afterwards and said, winning past the mat was a bigger deal to my kids. I know it's a bigger deal in my heart, but for the kids to pick up on that at their age, it was really cool. It made me proud of what we do. You know what I mean? To get to be a part of it.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I think that you alluded to this, but the super, super competitive athletes on an individual level, teams, coaches, gyms, programs, whatever, can sort of go, we don't care about that. We don't care about that. We're here to compete. Like, this is fluff stuff that not just Varsity, but that like the event producers, anywhere you go, they're adding it so that, we come back or they write it off. Yeah. And I think that your story really illustrates the point that it's not just about, and this coming from a very competitive person myself, it's not just about that. If you make it just about the competition or winning or even how well you do, you can miss out on a lot of things. And I see that especially with some of the smaller programs in the D2 events or the events that typically will attract the smaller programs, that they are there for the entire experience. If they are being asked to dress up for a theme, those parents and coaches and athletes show up in the theme. And of course they want to win. And of course they're working hard to hit a perfect routine and win whatever medal or jacket or whatever. But I'm so impressed by the programs that really take on the spirit of the entire event that they're attending.
Exactly. And it's the experience. And
Yeah.
those coaches and gym owners are very, very smart to think so big picture, because the results of the event happen like this. Like your award ceremony lasts 10 minutes, boom. But it is like that entire journey at the gym, traveling to the event, experiencing the event, all of that matters. And if you measure your success on what place did we get on that Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., then statistically you're gonna fail. You're gonna fall short because you're just not gonna win every time. But if you can have that experience that is enjoyable and create those memories that can last a lifetime, it's so much more worth it.
My athlete has never won national competition. Her team won a couple of cool competitions and came in, I think, second at Summit. But none of those memories compare to those intangible things, like getting to be on the floor at NCA in the arena and like some of those things that you're talking about. So I think that that's really important. And I think that that's something that we as an industry and we as parents need to be paying attention to. I talk about values all the time when choosing to continue in all-star cheerleading or choosing to continue with your current program or choosing a program in general. I think that's a value that we should be looking for is what is your mindset, coach or owner, around attending events? So you mentioned the league. I think that our friend Jason Larkins said it really well. I listened to one of your interviews with him and Jason said, Varsity gets blamed for everything. If it rains outside, somebody's going to find a way to make it Varsity's fault. And I'm sure you would agree that like no corporation, no person, nobody's perfect. And I'm sure there are mistakes that people could point out, but Varsity just gets blamed for every negative thing that happens to cheer parents, especially at competitions. And I think that this is just my personal opinion. I think that there are multiple people at multiple levels that contribute to that mindset. But the bottom line is that people say, I've heard this my whole cheer mom life. Varsity doesn't listen because they don't have to. They just want our money. And they don't have to hear what we want or what our gym wants or what our kids want. It's just, if they say the way that it is, then that's the way that it is. And a particular example that came to mind was at the height of my athlete's cheer career before she entered into the world's team space. We got into cheer, I think the second or third year that Summit was in existence. And from that point on, and hopefully we can have another conversation about Summit because I'm so curious about so many Summit things, and your marketing team must be absolutely brilliant because Summit was very, very quickly the it thing. And not only the it thing, it was all anybody cared about. And it got to a point where I started to get vocal about Summit's cool, but why does it matter so much that we're missing, again, these experiences? We compete 5, 6, 7 times throughout the season, but before and after every competition, all we're talking about is a Summit bid, and all we're talking about is Summit. And I started to get into the cheer mom Facebook groups and say, like, unpopular opinion here, but I don't think a Summit bid is the only thing that matters. And I'm not dogging on Summit, but people are like, well, that's just, Varsity just wants us to go to Summit, and they've made Summit bids the only thing that matters, and they're just not going to change that. And enter, I don't want to spoil it, but enter the league. You guys did listen to those Summit bid conversations and missing the forest for the trees. Can you tell me that story?
Absolutely. And you are spot on a lot of that. And I will just say, to correct the parents, we didn't decide that Summit was the end all be all. you guys decided that summit was the end all be all, which was great.
It caught like wildfire.
It was great. It obviously, we created something that there was a need. Obviously, there was a need because people came rushing to it, which is really, really awesome that we got to be a part of that. But the unintended consequence of the summit was the competition on the upcoming week. Nothing mattered anymore. Not only did it not, once you got your summit bid, the rest of the season didn't matter, period. But in addition to that, like teams would win their division and leave award ceremonies upset because they didn't get the summit bid, or they would win their division, but they would be at AccuScore trying to claw their way into getting more tents onto their score sheet so that they would be in line for the summit bid. And we're like, well, wait a second, you're about to go get first place. Like, what are you worried about? It's a summit bid. This sport doesn't exist for the summit. It exists for the kids to have an experience. And what's been the neatest thing about the summit, it is engaged athletes all season long. And no longer does your entire self-worth or your team's worth hinge on whether or not an athlete put their hands down at one competition in the middle of January. I mean, that there's so much pressure on these kids to be perfect every week. We wanted to find an opportunity to reward consistency for you to be able to look back on and say, hey guys, we won Jam Fest. We won this one-day event in Knoxville, Tennessee. We won NCA. No, we didn't make finals at Summit because we were having a bad day, but look at the season we had. We ranked in the league. And so what we're trying to do is create a season-long engagement where everything counts. It's not just the one event where you get your bid or the regional summit at the end of the season or so whatever it is. We want the whole season to count for people to be able to look back and be proud.
So how does that work with the league?
Well, the league, we've got every event you go to, every varsity event, you earn points based on your placement, not your ranking. And the more prestigious or the more important the event is, the more points that placement is worth. So let me just clarify that going to a prestigious event and getting first is going to be worth more points than going to a less prestigious event and getting first. And getting second at an NCA, which is a 700-point event, earns you more points first at a 600-point event like ACA. So know your daughter, Kristen, know your daughter did not win NCA. She got second place, or maybe it was second place at the summit, whatever it was. She got second place, and no, she didn't go home with the title, but she racked up a lot of league points that are going to pay off at the end of the season when the final rankings come out.
So how do they, because you guys have put a lot of effort and a lot of attention on the league with live shows and ranking shows. We got Varsity TV does a results show every single week where they highlight different programs. We got Maddie and Chuck doing live coverage from the events. The winners win a pendant with a sapphire in it. I mean, it's been a big deal. And what's funny is same thing happened with the summit, by the way. At the very beginning of the league, just like the very beginning of the summit, nobody understood what was going on. Like teams accidentally won summit bids. Teams accidentally won the league. And they're like, what? And so, you won the league. Yeah, you got banner. We're going to feature you on Varsity TV. And they're like, oh, so now next year, now they know about the league. And now it's starting to make a difference. So Summit was the same way. The first year of Summit, I had to call teams that went to NCAA Nationals and say, can you take this Summit bid? Oh, okay. You can't? Okay. And I said, I'm just letting you know, this is going to be a big deal someday. Okay, great. Who's next? What can you take the Summit bid? Upside down is this?
But the league has been the same way. And I'm telling you, and at the Summit, for the teams that placed in the top 3 at the league, we invite them to a special ceremony at the Summit for them to pick up their awards. And it's so cool. Those kids are so excited. And especially those teams that, again, they don't have the best Summit experience. Maybe that Saturday semifinals doesn't go great, but like they got to come in as a team and pick up their awards and take pictures and get interviewed by Maddie Gardner or Season Darty or whatever. It's really cool. It's really cool to get to be a part of that. And it's really cool, again, to be at the beginning stages of what looks like it's going to be a really neat program.
I can't wait to see what that turns into, if that becomes the new it factor. It sounds like it could be.
It could. And even if it doesn't, the fact that we get to recognize sometimes a different section of kids who just had a great season, it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
I do like the idea of a point system and helping to celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of wins, now I know that you are more removed from the scoring system than you were. Yeah. If you could describe the score sheet in one word, what would it be?
Rubric. And I say that because the scoring has evolved over time. It used to be a very general score sheet, similar to what Worlds has right now. There's so much rubric now that it's complicated. To be honest, it's a lot. But what it's helped do is create accountability to help the judge, not just the judges get it right and give them a reason to stand behind their score, but it's also given coaches the blueprint for how to be successful. It's given them things to focus on at practice because they know if they invest time in focusing on this execution driver, then in a perfect world, that translates to a higher score when they get to competition.
I listened to a sports podcast not long ago where they talked about, it was specifically about basketball, but it was the coach of this particular NBA college team, it doesn't matter, it said, how do we win more games? And that's the big picture. Like, we just want to win more games. Well, how do you win more games? You score more. And what it came down to is they focused on one little thing for the entire season. Their only goal was not to win more games. Their only goal was to increase their rebound percentage, like their number of rebounds. And because they focused on that one thing, on practicing getting the rebounds, they had the best season they'd ever had. So like focus, of course there's the big picture and the overall impression, but I do like the idea of if we can focus on this one thing, it's going to lift us all up and improve the entire routine score.
And that's true because especially in cheerleading, you're only responsible for what you do in your 2.5 minutes, and you can have the routine of your life and the next team could come out, have the routine of their life, and you might get second because of it. And it doesn't change how great your routine was or how great your athletes did. It's just another team happened to score more points than you.
I am friends with a cheer mom who she has an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old is one of the most confident girls I have ever met. And I didn't get to watch her routine. I think it was at NCA. But I saw her after and I'm like, how did it go? And she's like, well, the team didn't hit, but I hit. So I'm happy. And I'm like, I love that. She didn't like gloat in front of her teammates, but she was like, I'm happy with the way that I did. I think it's a team sport, but we need more.
We've got to find the victories when we can.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's now up to 150 questions or more from cheer moms. When I said that I was going to be talking with somebody from Varsity, what do you want me to ask? And last episode, we addressed many or most of those questions. But there is a question that has come up several times, and Varsity has taken responsibility, especially I feel like recently on social media, about results, undesirable results, or however you want to say that, at a competition where maybe a mistake was made and it changed the results of the competition. And I appreciate the public responsibility and accountability, with the understanding that we're dealing with a live sport and basic human error comes into play, and there are different interpretations of different things. What conversations are you having within Varsity, within the industry, to have more consistent judging and scoring?
Well, I mean, that's a constant conversation. And you're right. In live sports, anything happens. And it does happen. There's There's bad calls at almost any live sporting event I've ever been to. My son is on a very competitive little league team. They're headed into the Wiley World Series championships this weekend. So fingers crossed for them. My son's not one of the more advanced kids on the team. So I'll say that, but there was a bad call made. There was a kid on our team ran home. The catcher was over the foot. So whether or not his foot touched the base was up for debate, and the umpire made a bad call. And I became furious for my son. My son was not involved in the play, first of all, but I wasn't going to let this opportunity get by my child to win this game. But it's a live sport. It happens absolutely everywhere. So all we can do is keep trying to get better and better and more accurate and more accurate. I will tell you, on social media, the sky is always falling, period. The sky is always falling.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of social media. These missed deductions that we talk about, there are 3 different types, in my opinion. There's the blatant, you missed it. There were 4 stunts in the air. One of the stunts came down and they held it there for 3 8 counts. It does not make any logical sense how the judges missed that. And those errors happen every once in a while. We had one that happened at Summit earlier this year. Then there's hey guys, there's just humans. There's 32 of y'all on the mat going 20 million different directions. Yes, a girl in the far back corner slipped. She hit her seat and she bounced right back up. No, the judges didn't see it because they had 24 kids on the left side of the floor that they were following. That's the nature of the sport. You want big, loud, complicated visual routines, and you visually want to see your kids doing this the whole routine. You can't do this the whole routine and catch every single mistake. That's how it is. It's a live sport, and that's how it goes. But then there are the deductions that the coach's interpretation or the parent's interpretation of what the deduction is versus the judges are just 2 different things. And honestly, that's 80% of the noise that we hear. There are the big blatant misses, and yeah, they happen, and that sucks. There's the less obvious misses, but there's a reason that when your daughter competed, the parents from the other team weren't allowed to sit on the panel and judge them. There's a reason why the coach from the other team wasn't allowed, and that's because it is impossible for a cheer parent or even a coach to be unbiased. And so I can appreciate when a coach screams that we missed a deduction. Often we didn't miss it. We just don't agree with you that it was a deduction, that it was a foul, that it was a bobble or whatever. The judges miss plenty, and we are sick to our stomach when that occurs because it's not right and it's not fair and it doesn't reflect all the great things that the team put on the floor. But everybody's human and it happens. But it's just interesting because a lot of times the coach just disagrees with what that was. You watch your competitor with a different set of eyes than you watch your own routine. So it's impossible for that bias to not come into play.
Well, it's something that I've experienced, especially this season, with being at more varsity events in the last 6 months than I've ever been to as a cheer mom combined. The people at these events on the event level, they're people who used to be cheerleaders that still love cheerleading, that still love your athletes. And they just want to be a part of this industry that has given so much to their lives. They want to give back. They're not sitting back with their feet on the table, picking their favorites or choosing to elevate one team over another. These are people who really care about our kids.
You're absolutely right. Of course, I'm one of them. We all grew up in the sport and we all want to create the best experience possible. And we're always going to get slack when you're the leader or the best or the founder, whatever you want to call us. When you're in the lead, people are going to point at you as being the problem or the issue. The best thing that we can ever do is the right thing and to keep pushing in that direction. And we'll always try. And our judges work so hard. We'll always try to get it right and to do the best that we can. And that works out most of the time. And sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it doesn't. And it is loud and excruciatingly painful for everybody involved. But that that's the way that it is. What doesn't happen after that little league game is over is I call a meeting with the Wiley Youth Baseball Association and demand a recount and a change in the results. My kids lose all the time in a way that I think is unfair to them and unfair to the time and energy that they've put into their sport. And it happens sometimes, and it hurts. It hurts.
You are known for a viral Facebook post that's titled, "I hope you lose." And everybody knows you for that and loves you for that. And I will link that in the show notes for people to read, because it really is about the experience.
It is. And it's funny. Culturally, back when I posted that was not culturally where we were as an industry. It was at the time that it came out, it was a big deal that it came out because nobody had really said that yet. And now it's to be responsible for the sport and to be stewards for the sport. We can't lose sight of the overarching message and experience that we're providing. It is so short-sighted to get consumed by what happened at the event this past weekend. I mean, it can be painful when you're going through it if there's a mistake, but there's a much bigger picture at play here that we're responsible for advocating for.
I love that. And I love that someone in leadership like yourself has that heart and that mindset. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And there are a bunch of people. Sometimes I get thrown out there. Sometimes I'm the one who gets thrown to the wolves, but I'm surrounded by people who love what we do and who are all in this for the right reasons. And I hope you get to meet some of them, because sometimes I get a little tired of having my name thrown out there.
You're a boss. You're a boss. Yeah. Introduce me to more people. I want to hang out with more people, especially if they're as fun and as kind as you are.
You're sweet.
So yes, I am very sweet. So you are one of the, what I call founding fathers of cheerleading. There are not many of you. And people I think at a leadership level, at every level of cheer, whether it's Varsity or another company, you guys all sort of know each other, whether you cheered together, whether you've been in the industry a long time. I mean, Victor Rosario invented so many of the skills that these elite teams are doing today, and he's still very much in the coaching scene today. Well, I heard about your background today, and now you are in leadership at Varsity. So there's still very much those founders of All-Star Cheer as we know it today, leading, guiding, directing our industry. What do you think that the next generation of leaders in the industry need to have to continue to take it forward?
That is a great question. And you're right. I'm not about to show myself out, but there is the next generation. And there was a generation before me, by the way. I don't want to take all the credit for being a founder, because it's been going on longer than I've been around even. But we live in a world now where everybody wants instant gratification, and that's on social media, on TV, in real life. People only want to watch TikTok clips because they're 10 seconds long, and then they're moved on to the next thing. What I think is important for the next generation is to make sure they're in it for the long haul. The immediate gratification, the immediate results don't usually happen. It's a long-term journey. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And I hope that the next group, and I think they're starting to pop up right now. I hope that that's been the cool thing about working with Varsity, is we feel a responsibility to help make this industry work and thrive for as many kids to get to be involved in the world of cheer as possible. And so I hope that next generation sees that long term, that marathon that's coming. And if you've ever run a marathon, it's really hard. And there's this time for me a few miles in where I'm like, what have I got myself into? What was I thinking? This sucks. I'm never doing this again. But when you cross that finish line, the first thing I'm doing after I cross the finish line is I'm on my phone looking for the next race that I'm going to run. Yeah. And that's what this world has been. There are moments in this world, in my job, moments where I want to quit, where like, this pressure, the pressure I feel for the kids to have a positive experience is in moments overwhelming. But if you stick it out, if you don't quit on Saturday of NCAA Nationals at 11 a.m. in the morning, if you don't quit and you stick it out, you see the benefit and you see it paying off and you see that long term. Anyway, the next generation, get off TikTok, watch clips that are longer than 10 seconds because your career is going to be that much longer as well. And there is benefit coming around the corner.
Get off TikTok, but only after you watch my skills demonstration videos, because
that's what I meant to say.
Benefit you highly. Thank you, Justin, for that correction. Okay, I have a few rapid fire questions, short answers before we wrap up. So are you ready?
I think so.
What is one thing you want to see change in the cheer industry?
I want to see a better emphasis on community, sportsmanship. I want to see a de-emphasis on featuring mistakes, whether that be judging mistakes, fine, but athlete mistakes. I hate going on social media and seeing an athlete fall or a stunt fall being re-aired over and over. Not because I care, like, okay, the judges missed it, whatever, but my heart hurts for that kid that has to relive a mistake over. I don't know how any kid, it's hard for me as a grown man who has enough self-confidence and self-worth for it to not hurt me. It pains me sometimes. So I know how it feels for the kids. I want to see us lift up everybody and make every athlete feel special.
So last NCAA, you tweeted about getting your eyebrows professionally done the night before. Do you get your eyebrows done professionally before every competition?
No, usually because I don't like how my brows look the day after I get them done. It was an accident. I like it about 2 weeks grown out. Unfortunately, NCAA snuck up on me this year, and so I was forced to go when I did. I had a really wild gray hair that was climbing up my forehead, and so that was an emergency.
Are you a wax guy? Are you a microblade guy? Are you a laminate guy?
I used to be a wax guy until about 10 years ago, and then I became a threading guy.
Threading, that's what I meant, yeah.
Which is more painful than most things I've experienced in my life.
That's what I hear, that it's so painful. Why would you put yourself
But it's worth it. If I didn't do that, I would have one eyebrow that started at this ear and went all the way across to this ear. No hair on my head, but plenty on my face.
Your twin brother is also bald and also has impressive eyebrows. Does he have to get them threaded as well?
Luckily for him, I'm his brother and took him to his first brow waxing when we were in our 20s and his first brow threading. So I've been very helpful to him.
Okay, just know that when you see Justin Carrier on stage and on TV, he's put himself through it to look good for you.
Pain is beauty. Beauty is pain.
Okay, so most cheer mixes have gotten away from the top 50 pop songs and licensed music, and we've talked about that on the podcast before.
Yeah.
I've seen some sneak into some cheer mixes, but if the cheer mix was full of those songs again, which song would you love most to see included in a cheer mix?
There's one song that I never got to use when I was an all-star high school choreographer that I wish I had. Whitney Houston's One Moment in Time. For you young people out there, it's like a really powerful ballad. It's very inspirational. I think they used it in the Olympics one year, but I would turn stunts in slow motion to that song if ever given the chance to do that song. I remember like being a kid in my bed and like hearing that song and being like, I was just inspired. I was like, I'm going to clean my room because this song came on. And I would include Whitney Houston's One Moment in Time.
At the original BPM, like that big of slow motion, or would you remix it?
If the routines are still 2.5 minutes, if we're living in a fantasy world where we get to use original music, and then that means routines. If the routine's 5 minutes long, we'll do the slow version. If I only have 2.5 minutes, we'll speed it up a little.
I see a mix with like the pyramid is the chorus of One Moment in Time, and it is in slow motion. There have been some choreographers who've done some really cool things with slow motion and drops, and it's
pretty amazing. And they've figured out workarounds with the cover music that works. Like you mentioned it earlier, there have been some emotional experiences associated with today's music. It's been really cool.
Yes. Okay. So to wrap things up, I always want to bring it back to cheer moms, cheer parents. The whole reason why I'm here is because I was a confused cheer parent and didn't know how to navigate my way through this world. I don't like to use the word crazy cheer mom on the podcast ever. But I do think that cheer moms especially get a bad rap. And there's all sorts of reasons why, we get really wrapped up. It's a very emotional sport. The stakes are high, 2.5 minutes. That builds up into all kinds of emotions and intensity on top of the fact that nobody truly understands the score and how some of these skills work. And I think that builds up into we have an opinion or we have a reaction and we don't feel heard. And that's not a knock on any one person or organization. But I think that people tend to act out in their own way when they don't feel seen and heard. And one of the reasons, not to toot my own horn, but one of the reasons I think that the Cheer Mom podcast, Cheer Mom blog, that my platform has been successful is because people we all want to feel seen, whether that's poking fun or knowing that you're not the only one. And when you feel seen, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, but when you feel seen, you can exhale, when you know that you're not the only one, and whether you're a cheer parent or just a human, when you know you're not the only one and you're not alone and that we're all struggling and that people are trying to hear you. They just have a different way of showing it. All of those things, we all act differently and we all have our way of expressing those things. And sometimes that can come across in an intense, emotional way. So what would your advice be to cheer parents? What do we need to do to be seen or to feel seen and not brushed aside? How do we communicate, or what kinds of questions do we need to be asking, or what do we need to be paying attention to so that we can have a more productive conversation as parents in the industry?
That's a great question. I will tell you that the crazy cheer mom phenomena is not unique to cheer. We're all parents. And I had a run-in with my son's elementary school during D2 Summit about whether or not he was going to be allowed to participate in field day, because we didn't send him to school with the appropriate bathing suit, change of clothes, and a towel. And I'm at D2 Summit, running D2 Summit, dealing with angry parents of my own, turning over and dictating an email to the principal about my son feeling isolated and left out. And I'm going to make sure my son's experience at school is not negative in any way. And I lit into the principal. And then I went back to getting lit into by parents at D2 Summit. So first of all, we're all there. We're all there. So the principal called me back on Monday after I had calmed down and shared with me the entire situation. And while I did have a foundation to stand on, there was reasoning that I felt like my son was getting ostracized, and my son has autism, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure he gets to experience everything with the other kids. So that won't ever change. But the teacher pointed out to me a few things that I wasn't aware of. She pointed out to me what the lady working the front desk who called me, what she was going through that day. She shared with me the policy of how they handle kids that don't bring an extra towel to field day. And all of that made sense. And I was able to back up for a second and appreciate that I'm going to worry about my kid for the rest of my kid's life. But the principal and Miss Sheehan at the front desk, they have to worry about every kid. And they have a short amount of time to worry about every kid. In a perfect world, Miss Sheehan would have sat on the phone with me and told me all the things that Caleb was going to be able to do at field day. But here's the one thing he won't be able to do. She would have walked me through the process. But you know what? She had 30 other parents to call to remind them to bring a towel within the next 20 minutes or else. So she couldn't sit on the phone with me and explain to me the journey of my son, because she had 30 kids that she had to get on the same page. And I believe that's what we all go through. A cheer mom wants Varsity to understand what we put her daughter through. And we absolutely care. We absolutely care that your daughter has the best experience possible. But at NCAA Nationals, I've got 26,000 athletes that I have to worry about. And if I spent 30 minutes talking to each mom that wanted to talk about their daughter's experience, there wouldn't be enough hours in the day for us to produce that event. And so, and on a different scale, I can say the same thing for gym owners and coaches. So I guess to go back to your question, because I just got on a soapbox because I just lived through this experience as a dad myself. The best thing you can do, take as much emotion out of your situation as possible before addressing the coach or the gym owner or the event producer or whoever you need to talk to. Give yourself time to decompress, because when I was firing off that email, that didn't come from a place of facts. It came from a place of feeling. And you are not responsible for my feelings, and I'm not responsible for your feelings. So that's my advice. Bring it back in, center, take time, and pause, and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Brene Brown has, and I forget the term she used, but there's this concept of assuming the best intentions of everybody that you're working with.
Everyone is doing the best that they can
Everyone
with
is
what
doing
they
the
have.
best. Yes. And I believe that. I believe that. I absolutely believe that. And so if you come to me, Kristen, if your daughter, she didn't get her medal, first of all, I'm very sorry. She didn't get her medal. I'm very sorry.
She wasn't
But
at Summit this year. Don't worry, just
everybody got their medal at Summit this year, Kristen. But if you come to me and assume that I hate children and that I don't care about your daughter complaining about the medal, the first thing I'm going to do is try to work through the weeds of what you're saying about my intentions and how I'm a bad person and I don't like puppies and I don't want your daughter to have her medal. Like I've got to process that before I can even approach situations. So my hope is that you will give me some grace and know that it was never my intention for your daughter to not get a medal, and that we're doing the best we can to get that medal as quickly as possible.
Justin, I could not have dreamed up a better answer. Thank you. And thank you for being relatable. I think that you are a fantastic dad, and your kids are characters. They crack me up. And the way you show up as a dad, at least online, it gives me life. I love it. And
Well,
I love how
that.
much you care for your kids and the tension that your job creates for you as a human, like as a dad. Like you're here taking care of our kids and making sure that our kids have a positive and memorable and safe experience as you're missing field day for your own kids.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the Cheer Mom community, thank you for taking care of our kids and for loving the sport and loving your job so much that our kids are able to take that legacy with them.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate it. And I know we are doing this because one of the reasons I wanted this podcast is because we physically can't speak directly to the parents as much as we would like, but we love cheerleading. We love what we do, and we love getting to be a part of what y'all's kids are experiencing. We know what it did for us growing up, and it's exciting to get to see y'all's kids have that same opportunity.